Hey everybody, it's Justin from Built, and I just got a new toy for my business, this enclosed trailer, and I'm gonna have a great time doing a whole bunch of videos for you on the build out of this. I'm going crazy. I'm gonna do solar and flooring and crazy lighting and all sorts of custom build out projects inside, modular carts, all sorts of stuff. But we're gonna start with today's video, which is on the fundamentals of designing something complex. It's somewhat easy to say, oh, I'm going to build a cabinet and here's how I do it. But when you have to build 40 cabinets and fit it into a tight space with very different things that go in everything and maybe other additional functions, how do you do that? So I'm going to break it down very much into its fundamentals because most likely you're not building out a trailer, but it might be you're building out a mudroom. Some people have problems with visualization. And so I'm hoping that maybe me going through my thought process on this will relate over to a project that you're going to be doing. So come with me as we learn the fundamentals of a more complex design project today on Bittner Built. Now before we go jumping into the actual design process, there's usually pre-designed stuff that you have to consider. So these are things that will influence the actual design process, and so it's good to understand these things beforehand, such as like the thickness of the materials that you're going to be using. If you just start doing stuff and you're going off 3/4 inch and then you decide, oh, I'm going to do 1/2 inch, well, then you have to redo everything. So it's good to figure those things out beforehand. So the first thing that I would always focus on is what action is going to take place in this space. When you have an enclosed trailer like I do, obviously you can just use it for storage, and that might be its only action. Very simple. But what if you're going to do something like add a miter station inside there? That means that I need to have a counter that's equal with my miter saw for a certain period of length. I need to add in maybe like a fence and stop block type of setup. I need to have egress clear from it out the back of the trailer. I don't need anything impeding it because it'll hinder how much I can cut. And so because I have an action that has to be accomplished, that's the number one thing that I'm going to plan first. Everything else is secondary to be designed after that first action is accomplished. Now, when we're talking about a different type of thing, like let's say we're back to that mudroom. Well, what if that mudroom's a mudroom and laundry room combo? That's a very common thing. And so you need to design the flow of space so that you can accomplish both tasks, that people aren't falling over each other if there's more than one person in that room. You need to make sure that cabinet doors are going to be able to open without hitting other things. So there's things that you need to think about as far as actions that occur in the space, and so that should be your number one focus whenever you're starting a design process. You're going to be spending a lot of time on your budget and the materials that dictate your budget. That's going to probably be the majority of your pre-design time, is figuring out what grade of materials do I want to use, because it highly affects the budget. Are you doing laminates and pine, or are you doing mahogany and quartz? Big difference, even though you can build the exact same things with them. But the idea here is to try to get a guesstimate of what you're going to be doing and plug it in with those materials to see, are you actually in the ballpark of your budget? So if you're way outside of that, then you already need to make decisions before you already spend the time in the design process, because maybe your eyes are bigger than what your wallet is. Or your budget for this particular job. Now, with my trailer, I've done trailer build outs for myself where I just went and bought dimensional lumber, slapped it together. I needed it to be cheap, and I didn't really care. But this is a more expensive trailer. I spent a lot more money on it, so I really hope it's going to last me a lot longer. And so I'm okay with spending a lot more money on, I'm not happy about it, but I'm okay with spending more money to get it to the way that I want to have it. And hopefully it will stay that way for quite a while. And of course, I need to make interesting stuff for you all out there in YouTube land. And whenever you roll up to a job site and your trailer rolls down and the customer is looking in, they're like, oh, wow. You'd be like, yep. I've actually gotten a couple jobs that way. So, people look in there like, wow, your trailer is super organized. This is awesome. Look at this. And then that translates over to, well, you know, I do that type of stuff. I build out organizational systems for your garage and things. And then all of a sudden you're doing a second job at that client's house. So don't ever discount a good looking trailer. Another pre-consideration is utilities. So electricity, for example, when I talk about utilities. In my trailer build, that type of question is, hey, are we doing a lot of electrical wiring here? If yes, are we hiding it behind the walls? If so, that's something that we do at the very beginning of the construction process. Or are we putting it up in channels so that it's hidden but able to be accessed later on? Or are we running conduit, exterior conduit on top of the wood? Which those type of things need to be addressed in our plans, because I might need to be cutting out a notch out of all these cabinets as I run this pipe across the wall. So those type of things are important to think about beforehand. If you're doing more of a traditional build, if we go back to our whole, mudroom scenario that has a washer and dryer in it, you need electricity for those appliances. You need to have venting for those appliances and water lines and things like that. So are those things even capable to be done in the room that you're looking to do it in? Utilities are a very important thing, and they will highly impact the design of your space, because if a vent has to go somewhere, well, if your unit's on the other side of the room, that doesn't work. It means you're going to have to put it over here. So understanding your utilities is a very important pre-planning process. The last one is very hard for me to quantify in this video, and that is job-specific items that you have to think about. So since this could be a million different things, it's hard for me to give examples that way. I will refer to the trailer though. So for me, because it's a vehicle, I have to take into consideration weight. So where I could build things out of 3/4 inch plywood, most likely I'm going to build things out of 1/2 inch so that it's lighter. The more weight I put in this trailer during the build out process, the more it's permanently going to be shrinking down on the shocks of the vehicle. That's going to wear out my shocks sooner. It's going to wear out my tires sooner. It's going to put more stress on the trailer frame itself. It's going to cause more wear and tear on my vehicle, and it's going to cause me to spend more gas when I'm pulling something because it's heavier. The heavier it is, the more gas I'm going to spend. So these are all big negatives that I have to take into account during the design phase of this trailer. Also, how I distribute the weight, because again, this is a moving vehicle. When you think about vehicles, a Jeep has a really high center of gravity, and so it has it is easier to roll over sideways than like a sports car that's very low to the ground. It has a very low center of gravity. In a trailer, it's a very tall vehicle, and so if I'm putting really heavy stuff up top, it's going to raise my center of gravity and make it easy for me to roll that trailer if, like, I'm going up a hill and a deer runs out and I have to jackknife the vehicle. I might roll that trailer, and that would be a really bad day for me. So those type of considerations are job-specific things that I have to think about when building out this trailer. And so while I can't tell you for your project what that would be, I'm just suggesting, ask yourself, do I have some very specific things for this job that I need to take into consideration before the design process? When it comes time for the design process, the very first thing to do is go in your trailer and measure out all the dimensions. My son Benjamin is helping me out with that.
Hey everybody.
He's been expressing some interest in engineering and architecture and stuff, so he offered to come out and help me, and Dad is always up for son helping. So as Ben is doing everything, we are putting it into a CAD layout program on the iPad. Of course, you can write everything down, draw it out if you want to. I particularly like using a program because then I can put everything in and be as precise as possible to see where everything goes. Now that we have all of our dimensions of our space understood and recorded, it's time to log all of the dimensions of the stuff that's going into that space. At least the primary things. The things that are large, awkward, most important, things like that, That will give you a lot of guidance in laying out the space, understanding all of these sizes. For me in my trailer, I have lots of weird stuff, like I have 5 sets of 200-foot safety rope. I have 10 of these pool skimmer poles that I have to fit in, and these are huge, right? And awkward to put into a space. So I always have to play around with finding the right way to hide them out of the way so they're not interfering with the majority of my main storage things. We use these to put Christmas lights on 30-foot trees where we can just walk around in a circle using these poles. So they're very important to me. We use them all day, every day, but they're very hard to store. So typically I find some way to put them on the ceiling of the trailer to get them out of the way. But understanding all of your items, understanding their dimensions, will make it very simple in a CAD program or 3D modeling or whatever to just move them around and get them in the right space. Also, when you have things like crates and things, understanding those basic dimensions of that crate means I could build a shelf and understand how many of these I'm going to be able to get on that shelf once I factor in the thickness of the shelf material. There's lots of things to consider, so the more numbers you have, the easier it is. Welcome to my home office. I don't ever think I've filmed in here before. So now that I have all the dimensions of my trailer, I can actually sit down and start to do the actual firm design work before I start building out the project. So one of the very first things that I did before I even got the trailer was I started sketching out exactly what I wanted and where I wanted it to make sure that I could fit everything inside and make it flow the way I wanted to. And I'm a big fan of trying to organize everything really, really well and make it obvious and label it so that my employees can easily find it and, fingers crossed, put it back where it's supposed to go, right? Because I've had instances where, like, every day it's 6 o'clock in the morning, we need to clean out the trailer and put everything back where it goes and restock the stuff that's missing. And then I've had other years where every day the trailer is clean. People actually put things away. So I really pay a lot of effort and time into trying to organize my trailers. And so I drew everything out, but it's not precise. I didn't do it to scale. I didn't have all my dimensions and everything. So once Benjamin and I actually had the trailer and we measured it out today, I was able to make an exact representation of it in my floor plan software. Now, there's a million different ways you could represent your things inside software. There's a million different software options out there. You could do 3D stuff like SketchUp, but honestly, I'm not very good at 3D myself, but I have done hundreds of floor plans. So I'm very good at floor plan software, and so that's what I kind of gravitate towards myself. Whatever you choose to use, if you use a computer-based thing, you can get incredibly precise. And so whatever you have in there should exactly be what is going into your trailer. If you choose to do it on paper, obviously you want to, design it at scale instead of just sketching it willy-nilly like I just did. And if you do that, of course, you could do similar things like I do. You could take dimensions of things and cut them out in paper so that you can move them around to see where it fits the best. But obviously this method is a lot more time consuming than after I put the dimension in, I can just move something around here on the computer. But I get it, not everybody's a computer person. The big thing too is, if you're trying to figure out a solution to something, anything that's available for purchase on the internet has its dimensions there. So that's an awesome thing. So something that I had up on the computer that I'm trying to figure out for myself is usually I have a rack in the back of my trailers that I put giant spools of Christmas light and electrical wire on that we pull out the back of the trailer. And I had the idea that, I don't want this to be a permanent structure in the trailer anymore. I would like for it to be a cart. That way I can take it out of the trailer when I don't want it. And also, if we're at the job site, I can take it out of the trailer and wheel it very close to where we're actually doing our work and be able to just pull all the wire right there instead of doing it out in the road, maybe far away from what we're doing. So I looked online for different cart solutions and whatnot, and so I was able to plot in a lot of their dimensions and things, and really nothing has worked that I've found so far. And I've really tried to think out of the box. I even was looking at like buying a dolly uh, at Home Depot and then welding on different metal pieces onto it. And the end all answer that I ended up coming with up with was that I bought some wheelbarrow tires and I'm making my own custom wooden dolly rack that's specifically built for my solution. And that way it fits nicely into my scenario. But, you know, if I had bought this one, I could easily just put in the dimensions that it has right there, boop, boop, put it in here and see if it, you know, fits into my design. Unless you're designing this for a client, you really don't have to focus on this being pretty. And so whatever program you choose to use, you can utilize rudimentary shapes because what matters is the dimensions of everything. So as long as you're able to assign appropriate dimensions that are down to a fractional, you know, or decimal point, you're going to have exactly what you need in your layouts. And so that being said, come take a look at my jumble of shapes for my layout on my trailer. So here you see the master, as I call it. So, you know, we made the overall shape of the trailer down to a very small fractional degree. That way we knew we exactly had everything done. And then once we had this base design done of the trailer, we moved on to doing a top-down view of the overall layout that I'm trying to achieve. So on the trailer here, I have a larger shelving section that I'm going to be putting on the left side. This is going to be the permanent shelving section. And there is going to be a miter station that is going to be installed on here. When I move to the side view, you'll be able to see that. So this very long run will be open and there'll be a miter saw that can be placed right in the middle right here so that I can do cutting inside the trailer. On the other side, you'll notice this shelving system here with 4 bins that are able to be inside. This shelving system can fold down when not in use. So you'll be able to see that in the next photo. I have an area for 3 ladders to stand sideways with 2 arms that hold them in place that fold up and down. So when I don't have the ladders there, they can fold up and away and they're not in your way. I have a wire spool cart that's going to be at the end here, which still allows other things to be placed around it. And I have a large floor-to-ceiling cabinetry item that I'm going to put here. Now, I have about 30 inches of width for my hallway in between, which in a house wouldn't work, but you know, when you're in a trailer, you're in cramped space, it's enough to be able to get stuff in and out. It's definitely not 2 people enough, but it's enough. Now, this is the view for when everything is folded down and removed. So this is where everything's here, and when it's not Christmas light season, I'll fold these shelves down. It only leaves a 2-inch line right here, and the ladders would go away, and the cart would go away, and that gives me about 10 feet by 4 feet in width to be able to put kayaks and a couch, you know, whatever I need to use this trailer for. I have a large space that I'm able to utilize, so very happy with that. I also, for my woodworking, have to consider how I get sheet goods home. And so what I'm going to do is this section is exactly the size of a sheet good right here where this line is. So I think I'm going to have some sort of arm that folds out at this end as well as an arm that folds off of the large floor-to-ceiling cabinet right here to hold plywood in a standing position against the wall. That way it doesn't get marred up. And I mean, I can lay it down flat, but if you've taken plywood, you know it's better to stand it up. It's a lot more maneuverable that way. Now, from a side view, this is the left side. So you'll see this long 2 stacked cabinet section. And so right here I have a spot where my miter saw can be placed in. And so this will have T-track laid into it so that I can have a stop block for this. And when not in use, there will be a false piece of wood that I can put right here so that it just goes back to being countertop. Overall, I'm able to fit 21 of these yellow squares that we have in here, and those are large storage totes. That's how I kind of try to treat everything. That way it's easy for storage because they stack and interlock in my warehouse. And then also, we're just putting them into this section in the trailer, and then we take them out again. And then for my other business, I have different totes that go in. So that's kind of the thing that works best for me. I have a large wall section where we can hang up wreaths for the different jobs that we're going to do. I'm going to have a short and very shallow shelving system right here because I don't want it to interfere with the miter station. And I have my custom wire cart that I'm going to be making that will hold 2 large spools of Christmas lights and then a couple small spools of lamp cord wire. Now on both this wall and the other wall, I have a big thing that says wall mounted storage. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to spend the crazy amount of money to do pack out wall storage or if I'm going to do French cleat storage on there, which you might say, Justin, French cleat in a trailer won't work. Oh, it'll work. And it will give me the flexibility to make custom holders for whatever I want. So I am kind of leaning in that direction, but I'm not 100% sure yet. On the other side, again, you'll see that wall storage. So, maybe pack out, maybe French cleat. And I have my foldable shelves over here. So I have 8 tote bins on this section. The ladders are standing sideways, and these 2 black lines are going to be 2x4s that are on hinges. So they will fold down and stand straight out, kind of like your arms being straight out to hold the ladders in place. And then they'll fold back up onto the wall, and I'll have a latch that will lock them there when I don't have ladders in this position. The large floor-to-ceiling cabinet that I have here is split into 2, so you can see the different sizes of these bins that will be right here, and those are deep bins that will pull towards you. And if you're standing at the door looking at the cabinet, there will be wide bins on this side, as well as my electrical hookup area that'll control my lights and all sorts of stuff. So overall, this is not a pretty mock-up, but it does have all of my measurements down to, small fraction sizes. And I'm able to look at it from different directions, just so that I can understand where everything's going in the trailer. And it's for me. It doesn't have to be super made up and high quality. As long as all of these measurements are everywhere, I can then take this and go ahead and start building stuff in the wood shop, and then I can bring it to install out in the trailer. I figured I'd show you one more thing that was more relatable. This is a CAD mock-up of my house, and I general contract built the house that we live in myself. And so before I actually started building, I CAD'd it all out before I provided this for architectural and engineering drawings. And literally all the furniture in here is the furniture that I own, down to, the exact shapes for everything, the exact same dimensions. So before we even had the house built, I knew that all of my furniture was going to fit exactly the way we wanted to. We would have proper clearances from doors and things. And then, of course, it was super fun to be able to play around with modifying things. We didn't want your typical breakfast nook. We wanted a 13-foot island in the kitchen. It actually has 4 stools, not 3. So it's pretty big, and that's actually where most people eat most of the time. And originally I had a much larger office closet over here, and then it dawned on me, oh, let's do a much bigger pantry. That's a lot more important than a stupid closet. So we have a huge pantry over here. Of course, it came into play when I was, building the pool area over here, and having to deal with the town for all of my blueprints and stuff. And since I was building the pool and the fence and everything myself, I was able to just take a snapshot of this and supply it to the town, and that was good enough for them to allow me to build. Now, when it came to the second floor of this house, originally we were doing a 4-bedroom setup like most houses this size are. But, we have twin boys, and so we said, they're going to be in the same room. Why don't we give them a giant double master suite? So they have a room pretty much the exact same size as us. They have a giant walk-in closet. They have an entertainment center and a couch. So they're pretty set up over there. And by deleting that room, it also gave us the option to put an upstairs laundry room in and make a double walk-in closet for ourselves. So my wife and I have a lot of space in there. You know, I get this little corner and she gets all this other stuff, including these big shoe storage cabinets that I built in. So, yeah, fun stuff there. Now, 6 months for 6 months this past year, we had a Ukrainian refugee family living with us, and so before they came, they were going to stay in the boys' room. So a mother and her two daughters, and so I needed to rearrange all the furniture in here. So instead of walking around with my tape measure, I just literally pulled out my iPad and moved things around in here. So I moved the queen bed out of here into their room so that the mother could have a larger bed, and then I put two twin beds over here. So they still had three beds in this room, a couch, and an entertainment center. So they had their own little mini apartment kind of setup. And it worked. So rather than me wasting time physically doing a whole bunch of stuff, I was just able to pull this out. So I really love being able to keep this app updated with the things from my house. And I'm constantly referring to it and playing around with it as we want to buy new furniture and change things and do things outside. So, you know, being able to have stuff in CAD or a 3D design program is really handy. Well, that was my thought process on, you know, doing a more complicated design. I'm sure I left a lot of stuff out, but as I said in the beginning, this video is more for the person who's a beginner, who's out there searching the YouTubes for some guidance on, hey, how do I plan out this big project that I'm trying to plan out? Definitely, I highly recommend using CAD or 3D design software if you're doing that, because as you saw at the end where I had the CAD of my house, it's really easy for me to be able to move something like a bed, and that bed is the size of the bed that I have in the guest room. So if I move it somewhere and it fits, I know it's going to fit. I already spent the time with a tape measure to put it digitally in here, so I know wherever I move it, it's going to fit. So if you're doing some sort of new project, having your items digitally in there to size and being able to move them around is a great help in helping you formulate your build process. So the channel is new. We're approaching 3 months, and I'm really trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by that 3-month mark. So if you haven't and you got good content, like and subscribe, please. It would mean the world to me. And of course, stay safe in the shop. I'll see you in the next video.